Round 6 of the Global Touring Car Series, or GTC, promised some serious high-speed action and excitement when the championship circus headed to the historic East London Grand Prix circuit. The fast and spectacular 3.9-kilometre layout is renowned for its legendary flat-out pedal-to-the-metal sweeps. Throw in the azure blue of the Indian Ocean as a backdrop, and the circuit provides spectacular tight racing that is watched far and wide. Friday's lineup was for practice, and car setup and qualifying happened on Saturday morning, with separate sessions run for the GTC and GTC2 categories. The Saturday afternoon then featured the two races, with both classes racing together, and a reverse order start for the second race, which always puts the proverbial cat amongst the pigeons. With a massively fast straight going into Potter's Pass Curve and Rifle Bend, as well as its tight turns into Cocobana and Beacon, and a quick back straight, the East London circuit is a joy for the drivers. The circuit was first used in 1934 and can lay claim to being the oldest track in the country. It hosted the SA Grand Prix for many a year, and some of the world's finest, such as Sterling Moss, Jim Clark and Graham Hill, plied their remarkable trade here in the 60s. Saturday morning's qualifying session, and Masters took his maiden pole position ahead of Michael van Rooyen. The GTC lads also made it extremely competitive early on. And the Dunlop girls presented the check to a beaming young Masters. Why not?
We're looking forward to the race. I think we got good race pace. And let's see what we can do. Hopefully a 1-2 for the team would be brilliant. But let's see what happens in the first few laps. Our Potters is a little bit hairy with these cars, going through there like I think 230 or 234. But if you lose it there, I mean, your car's toast, so just keeping it in one piece.
Unlike most major racing events, the public get to see the cars and drivers up close and personal. And the recipe is one of success, as the enthusiasts get bang for their buck. Anything to have a look at the car, even the door handle gets scrutinized. And then remember that picture to send home.
We'll see how the start goes. I haven't got much of a choice. It's outside of Potters or outside of Potters, so, which is not an easy one. But let's see what happens. It's going to be interesting.
Audi burnt the midnight oil to make sure that Moss was ready for action.
We're going to start from the back, see what we can do, and prove why we are leading the championship, and hopefully at the end of the weekend we can still head into Cape Town in the lead.
The grid, and up front it was Masters, then Van Rooyen and the Gazoo Racing Toyota starting from second. Johan Fourie in his EPS Courier Services BMW headed up row 2 ahead of Daniel Rowe in the second Jetta. Robert Volk Chemical Logistics BMW qualified it in 5th, and Simon Moss squeezed his Audi into 6th. His teammate Chop Sapuka was in the 7th place in the second Audi, while BMW driver Niaz Modak was bringing up the rear in 8th. In the GTC2s, it was Charles Smallberger who put one over Bradley Liebenberg in the tussle for pole. Adrian Wood got the lead in the second row, with Paul Hill and the Golf starting off 4th. And Bob Neal in the Delman Mining Ford Focus getting the nod just ahead of Mandla Mdekani. On to the rolling start and on board with Daniel Rowe. Hold on now. An impatient Johan Fourie and Simon Moss ready to pounce when the revs go into the red. And eventually, after all of the prepping and setting, worrying and stressing, they were off. Masters, a very talented racing prodigy at the age of 19, was off like a scalded rabbit, with Van Rooyen trying to find an early look but had the door firmly shut in his face, up to 220 towards Potter's Pass Curve, and then the long right-handed sweep to Rifle Bend, which refers to the old shooting range that was there once. This part of the circuit is ultra-fast, speeds of up to 230 km an hour. As usual, there was some early bumping and barging, with Moss getting the drop on Volk, while the GTC2s were off and running at pace as well, and nothing changed from when they left the grid. Up front though, Masters was very quick and already had a slight gap over the rest, while Volk and Moss were having a full go already. Further up, Fourie was watching Sapuka in his rearview mirror. The GTC2s and Paul Hill and the Kalex Golf firmly ensconced in 3rd place. Beach Straight, the S's, Butts End and Beacon Bend are exacting corners and needs your full attention, while the sweep and the back straight is taken with the throttle wide open. Masters looking for a maiden win, Van Rooyen, then Robert Valk, Rowe in the other Jetta, Sepuka, Moss, and then Valk strangely looking for pace. That was confirmed as the talented Valk called it a day after just one lap. Niaz Modak was keeping contact, but only just. With the first of 8 laps completed, the proverbial blanket, okay, a rather large one, covered the top 6 and there was very little to choose. However, in this format, a slight mistake, late or early break, or a wrong line, for instance, and you're 3 places worse off. Still, it was Masters with the red and white Toyota all over him and not looking like he was faster in a straight line than the Japanese manufacturer. Frankly, there was no give and take here and Moss was clearly looking to come by in a hurry. Watch closely. No team orders clearly as Sepuka goes by Moss. And Sepuka gallantly gave up his own car in Cape Town for Moss to come through from 4th on the grid to win race 2 then. The lads were certainly throwing the hardware around at a rate of knots in East London. Very little to choose from. But in the GTC 2s, it was still Smallberger, Liebenberg, Wood and Hill, with Robert Neal and Mandlam Dekani out of contention. Liebenberg bagged 2nd and 5th at the previous race at Swartkorp and was leading the series on 214 points. Wood had a frustrating yet still rewarding meet with a 3rd and 4th, which kept him in 2nd in the title chase on 192, just 14 clear of Smallberger in his privateer Golf GTI. News from the pits was that Valk had electrical problems but was straight back out onto the track, while Masters and Van Rooyen continued a rather fierce battle at the sharp end of the field, both drivers in search of maiden wins in the 2019 GTC Championship Series. Valk went back out there if only to claim pole in race 2, which always starts in reverse order. He rejoined, but gallantly and patiently waited to join the gaggle of cars at the back as they sped by the pits one more time. Masters was just pulling away from Van Rooyen, who's had a consistent if unspectacular season thus far. Johan Free too has had a mixed bag with a win and some podiums, which have kept him in the hunt. Clearly, the championship leader, headed by Sepuka, Moss was in a spot of bother and looked like he was battling to find his rhythm. Talking Sepuka, he had Daniel Rowe in his sights with some serious contact made there as Rowe closed the gate. Swapping paint early on meant one thing and one thing alone: it was going to get even more hairy. In the GTC 2 category, it was more of the same as the Volkswagen Motorsport crew of Bradley Liebenberg and Adrian Wood have been top of the class in their Golf GTIs. However, here at East London's GP circuit, Smallberger was having things going his way and Wood was chasing hard. For the men up front, there were now gaps appearing significantly between 1st and 2nd, and then Fourie had lost touch with them, while Rowe was bravely trying to hold off the Audi pair. GTC cars are built so that the cost of running the cars is kept to a minimum, but at the very same time this also equalizes performance between teams, drivers, manufacturers and vehicles. Eminently fair, which ensures no holds barred racing exactly like this. The GTC 2 class boasts near standard turbo 2-litre powered hot hatchbacks as a nursery for future South African champions. Let's go in car with Liebenberg to admire his skill set. He breezes by Wood as if he was looking for parking and then sets off in pursuit of Charles Smallberger. Meanwhile, Masters was under pressure once more as Van Rooyen had closed the gap and was looking for a way past. Despite clocking the fastest lap of the race at 1:24.136, earlier the Toyota driver had the VW man right back in his sights. It was a dogfight. Somehow Van Rooyen was finding more speed and that meant more pressure. Fourie had been sandwiched between this battle up ahead of him and Rowe in the 2nd Jetta, but this too had a different flavour as Rowe had closed the gap as well. Let's go back in car with Keegan. And from our camera down the sweep, it was clear that Van Rooyen wanted to have another go, very much like on lap 1 just after the start, but the younger man had enough speed and took a great line to again close the door firmly shut. This battle, and to be fair, several others throughout the field, had the border racing enthusiasts on their feet. Fourie too seemed to have found a little more tiger in the tank and had closed the gap to the front, but did he leave it too late to challenge? The two Audis were battling for competitiveness, which is the first time all season that Moss has not been in contention. During race 1 at round 5, it was Moss who took his 6th victory of the season, ahead of Masters with a solid Fourie completing the podium in 3rd. Coming up to the complex, Van Rooyen finally got the run into the corner but went in too fast and went farming instead. Masters kept his cool and his line and was back in front. That would not have helped Van Rooyen's tyres one little bit. Liebenberg had sneaked ahead of Wood in that fine move, but he could not relax for a second as the Kyocera man was relentless in pursuit of 2nd place, and nor could Liebenberg as he was still within touching distance too. Vogskar was stranded trackside, and the first time winner at Swartkops in race 2 of round 5 was out of it completely now. This too was a humdinger of a battle. Let's take another look at that Van Rooyen maneuver though, just to show it to you in slow-mo. The Toyota with just too much speed and not enough space, and Masters who did not panic at all. Superb driving all round actually, as Van Rooyen could have lost it big time there. Still the order unchanged. Masters, the Toyota. Then in no man's land, Johan Fourie in his EPS Courier Beamer, the 2nd Jetta, and now quite a long way back, the 2 German cars, Chop Sepuka and championship leader Simon Moss, whose Audi has had electrical problems in the last 2 races. On to the last remaining laps, and still the lads were using all of the available blacktop and helping the groundsman keep the grass in trim too. Rather kind of them, eh? Try as he might, Masters could not shake off the attentions of the flying Van Rooyen, who was in turn trying everything he could to try and sneak by, but all to no avail. At this late stage on the final lap, the Toyota Gazoo man would have also spotted the slower GTC 2 traffic up ahead, and this is when opportunities present themselves if you are the pursuer. At the same time, you can also get stuck and let the prey spring the coop if the cards fall wrong for you. Mandla Mdekani was the first man up ahead. He presented no real problems and didn't slow Masters down, and even though there was a moment, nor did Bob Neal in his Ford. Masters once more had some clear track ahead of him, but behind him it was a different story, as Van Rooyen now knew that he was fast running out of time and was clearly desperate for his first win of the season. But superb drive out of Beacon Bend, and Masters had his maiden win in the GTC Formula at the classic Old East London Grand Prix circuit. Van Rooyen was just 0.3 of a second behind, with Fourie in 3rd, Rowe 4th. Confirming that, Masters, who took a go-to-woe victory at the end of the hard-fought 8-lapper. Fourie held off Rowe comfortably to add another podium to his big 2019 tally, while Smallberger was comfortably ahead in his Universal Health Golf, with Liebenberg extending his championship lead just holding off Wood. On the podium, the 19-year-old was all smiles again as he made it a double, a first pole and a first victory to boot.
Super happy. Finally got my first pole and first win. All credits goes to the team. Volkswagen Motorsport have done a tremendous job setting up the car for this round, and looking forward to the next one, see what happens then.
In the GTC 2, Smallberger was a model of consistency and had just enough daylight to spare over the chasers to enjoy a relatively comfortable win.
Yeah, yes, got an awesome start, and then I managed to get the field a bit when they were fighting over 2nd place, and I never looked back from there and managed to score the win.
For the team principals, pit crews and mechanics, this was crunch time as the cars had to be checked and made roadworthy for the 2nd race. A tough old time for a lot of them as the vehicles get bashed around a lot on a quick running track such as the border layout. We back with the 12th race of the season, the 2nd leg from the GTC series in East London, right after this. It's the 2019 Global Touring Cars Championship Series Round 6 from the Border Motorsport East London Grand Prix circuit, and a large and enthusiastic crowd braved the windy weather to see some fine racing in the first race and instinctively knew it would be more of the same in race 2. From the young to the older and slightly faster, onto the rolling start, and it was Chop Sepuka who was elevated to pole because Niaz Modak did not start due to a drive shaft breakage. The second race always features that reverse order. It had, as it happens at the coast more often, become even more windy, making road holding just a tad more tricky. At the the start, Sapuka was off like a shot out of a cannon, while the rest were all looking for the elusive hole shot to come through, with a scenario exactly the same in the GTC 2s. In fact, for the GTC 2s, it was Neil in the Ford who was shut down very, very quickly. The Golfs and the Minis all over him. Moss tried to go up the inside and then found himself in a spot that he wasn't supposed to be, with nowhere to go, and the inevitable off. He lost a fistful of places in a nanosecond, from 2nd to 7th in the blink of an eye. The Eastern Cape man was battling again from the off like he did in race 1. Volk was back in the fray too, and the man who won his first race of the season at Swartkops in the previous round was hoping that his troubles were over, for he was banking on going at least one better and keeping his championship hopes alive. In the GTC 2s, it was the usual suspects who were lining it up for the second race. Smallberger getting away cleanly and going top of the class immediately, this time racing over 10 laps on the lovely old 3.9 kilometer track. Sapuka was nicely in control, but being the hunted is an entirely different proposition to being the hunter, although the Transkei Tornado, as he's fondly known, has been showing a solid return to the good form that has made him one of South Africa's best-loved drivers. But so many cars all trying to occupy one space makes for some tricky situations. Rowe out-dragging Fourie down to Potters, with Sapuka dominating the road and making himself as big as he could up front. Volk too had a little drift but corrected in the nick of time. First race winner Masters in his office having a full go at Johan Fourie. It was exciting stuff, and here again demonstrating one small slip and you get dropped down the field so quickly. Daniel Rowe had a solid showing in race 1, and here in the second he kept the pressure firmly on Sapuka. He secured a victory at Killarney and boasts 3 other podium finishes in 2019. His 4th in race 1 also bagged points, so he was in a good position early on. Dogged determination and some serious leaning on the petrol pedal, and Rowe was away, or was he? No, Sapuka taking and holding that inside line, and some really tight racing there. However, all of that just allowed Fourie, Masters, Volk and Van Rooyen to close the gap again as they sped past the pits. Fourie is a wily old customer, to say the least. Still, Sapuka made a welcome return to racing this year, with a team that gave him his initial break all those years ago was in control. But with all the cars and their output being this equal, it makes for the most exciting racing, and the second race at East London's GP circuit was no different. Volk's troubles continued, and he again had to visit the pits. It really was the pits for the likeable 32-year-old. That meant one less racer to worry about up there. The order: Sapuka, Fourie, Rowe, Masters and Van Rooyen biding his time at the back, with Moss and those intricate electrical issues again resurfacing for the Audi team. Let's watch Masters and the lines he takes. So Van Rooyen moves up 1 and was working towards the front, but would Masters just consolidate after his first race win, or give it his all? As it was, he now had championship leader Moss right behind him. The tail enders in the GTC 2s, Neil and Mandlakani, there was a serious scrap going on. Carbon copy of race 1, but Neil went in too quickly here at Kokobana and did some serious off-roading. Janelle de Villiers would have been proud of that one, and that allowed the Mini driver to ride off into the distance. Fourie had now decided that it was a good time to get his nose in front, albeit temporarily, as Sapuka held the inside and Rowe did the same to keep the beamer out. Van Rooyen in the Toyota Gazoo Corolla 2 was showing signs of impatience and quite clearly had the bit between his teeth as he moved into third. Fourie would have been a trifle upset. No give or take here, and here's Masters and his in-car shot again. Some of these men were also concerned about tyres and needed to nurse them a little, but somehow those thoughts all went out the window as it was hell for leather out there, and an even tighter race than the first, which was already a squeaker. 6 cars, all within touching distance of each other, and the crowd loved it. This, after all, is what they paid good money to come and see, smell, and experience. Rowe and Van Rooyen had tied one on at Swartkop in the previous round, and East London the battle continued unabatedly as the Toyota driver had worked his way quietly up to third. But Rowe was certainly not just going to vacate the space that Mike wanted. He was going to have to earn it. And that he did with a superb move around the outside. Fourie had a ringside seat. But then on the drag race down the long sweep to Potters and past the pits, Rowe got his nose ahead of Van Rooyen yet again. It was a scrap of note, and in this case they also put Sepuka under immense pressure. Strangely, Moss was really battling to get back after that off of his, but he was gaining a little. With the wind picking up more and more and the brakes being applied more and more, things got hotter and hotter. Finally, the battle between Van Rooyen and Rowe and their concentration on holding each other off gave Sepuka a little bit of daylight, but for how long? Fourie too is not exactly a patient fellow either when it comes to racing, so what was going to give? Everyone was asking. Wood was having a seriously good run in the GTC 2s and looking like he was enjoying the experience, but nothing was done until you saw the checkered flag wave in this formula, that is for sure. Into the latter stages of the race, and again the passing of the slower traffic could have a material effect on the results. Mdekani and the Mini was first on the radar. But he obligingly went down the right past the pits, and Sepuka, Van Rooyen, Rowe, Fourie, Masters and Moss all went on their merry way. That BMW sounding like $1 million at the lazy right-hand turn of Potters. The speed was at its highest, and even though the lap times were about 2 seconds slower than in race 1, it certainly didn't look like it from the outside. All of a sudden, Van Rooyen was up and into second, and that pushed Sepuka out of shape just a little. There was absolutely nowhere to hide as the space in between the races was negligible, and no one was giving a millimeter. In the GTC 2s, it was Wood, Liebenberg and Smallberger, and the championship leader looking for a way past. But the same rule applies here. No mistakes, because the boys would rip you apart in a second if you slipped up. Wood proved it. One slipped gear and it is ta-ta. The last lap, and up front, a last-ditch effort too from Van Rooyen over Sepuka like a rash, selling him the dummy, goes left and right past the pits to try and gain the inside line for Potters, but would the move stick? It seemed as if the Audi was faster in a straight line, and it was. Sepuka, Van Rooyen, Rowe, Masters and Fourie went past the checkered flag, all within just 1.8 seconds of each other. A maiden victory for the ever-popular Chop Sepuka in the Audi, while Liebenberg cemented his spot at the top with yet another victory ahead of Paul Hill and Wood a distant third after his mistake on the last lap. And let it not be said that Sepuka doesn't know how to celebrate.
That's what the game is about. You've got to be defending your place all the way. But, you know, thank God it happened on this circuit. I feel I'm just going through reserved emotions. The guys worked very hard last night to putting the cars together. And it's a better winning very closer to home. I've got fans that have driven 4 or 5 hours to be here. It's quite rewarding for them as well. So to the team, well done. I really give this win to them. They've done a fantastic job.
Smallberger took a good one right on the line, but his car was found to be overboosting, which saw a 20-second penalty added to his time following the conclusion of the event. This saw Liebenberg promoted to race winner ahead of Hill and Wood, who had serious gear selection problems. Mdekani and Neil rounded out the finishes.
So we had an awesome race. Slow start, but then I picked up the pace and started passing some of the other competitors, and then going into the last lap I was in third, so I didn't think I was going to get a win. But then Adrian had an issue coming out of Cochabana, and me and Brad, I gave him a run into the last corner. He defended. I managed to get a nice cut back and got him on the line. So yeah, very exciting stuff. Awesome race.
With his win in the first race and a solid fourth in the second, Keegan Masters moved ahead of Simon Moss on the outright GTC points table by 6 points, with Mike van Rooyen in third, just 5 behind Moss, with just 4 races to go. After round 6, Brad Liebenberg extended his points lead in GTC to 31 points over the luckless Adrian Wood, with Charles Smallberger 41 off the pace. It was a superbly exciting doubleheader, and the East London Grand Prix circuit lived up to its age-old reputation of producing fast, all-out racing once again. The 7th and penultimate round of the 2019 GTC Championship happens at the Kalani International Raceway on the 28th of September. I'm Arnold Gert saying, thanks for watching.